Hello, and welcome to a VO's Journey podcast. Today, I am back. And we are going to be talking about my transition to a casting director. Yes, I have been doing casting a lot of casting voice actors in roles, and I'm going to be talking to you today about what casting directors look for and how that can help you get more voiceover work, as well as fill you in a little bit about what's going on at VO Journey Academy and all that jazz. So it is great to be talking to you guys, and let's do it. This is VO's Journey. With your host, the incomparable Anthony Pica. It is amazing to be back doing a podcast. So just so you know, if you're not aware, we are doing a live session. I do a live session every single day on the YouTube channel at 12 o'clock noon Eastern time with Gabby Nistico every single day, Monday through Friday. Check us out. If you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, subscribe. It's a VO's Journey YouTube channel. Just a VO's Journey. I think it's at a VO's Journey. So check that out live every single day. We answer questions, all that jazz. So that's really super exciting. And today's topic we kind of discussed was casting directing, or, being a casting director. And so, I've had now lots of experience being a casting director for the live stage, as well as now with Academy Voices. So you guys remember many years ago, we started Academy Voices. I started Academy Voices, and we were kind of focusing on everything, every kind of voiceover genre. And in September of last year, I decided to take Academy Voices and turn it into solely for audiobooks, so that we curate, we publish, and we cast, etc., audiobooks, and we distribute them, through, of course, retailers and everything. So, that has been a huge change in my life and a lot of VO's Journey life. So since September, we've now published over 300, almost 330 audiobooks, which is incredible. And, we are going strong. We have hundreds of members. By the way, if you want to join Academy Voices, check out www.academyvoices.com if you want to be a narrator on there. We do a lot of different work. We primarily work with all forms of genres in the public domain, and we work with authors, we work with everybody, we do all kinds of stuff, because we also have the things that we produce, which I actually love. That's my favorite thing to do, because it's just between us and the narrator, and there's so much content out there that's not done, and it's not done well. And then you got to think too, there's so much content that comes available new every single day. So as time goes on, there's so much available for us to do, and so many classics as well as newer things. So that's been very exciting. So anyways, I'm doing a lot of these casting. I cast every single book. So I've casted all 330 audiobooks. And I think I casted another 15 this morning. So I do a lot of casting, and I kind of want to talk about a couple things to help you with your, getting voiceover work. And yes, I'm going to be talking pretty much about audiobooks right now, but this is the same thing for anything, right? Not just audiobooks, but also commercial work, long form, e-learning or corporate work, whether it's IVR, radio, TV, any of these kinds of things. This all is it all rings true. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to casting is the importance of your files being named correctly and you following all the directions that are asked of you. So this is a really important part that a lot of us don't. I know as a voice actor, we're so focused on acting. I'm always thinking, okay, did I do a good performance? Did I follow, like they told me they wanted me to sound like this. Did I sound like that? How was that take, right? We look at that as being our main focus, because that's our performance. But the reality is that there's a whole bunch of steps that the criteria that you need to meet before the casting director will even think about hiring you. And one of those things is, are you following all the directions that they have given you? Like how to name the file, what format the file should be in, what hertz it should be saved in. Should it be a WAV file or an MP3? Should it be a 48,000 hertz or 44,100? You know what I mean? Should it be at a constant bit rate of 192 or should it be 320? Right. And then, if it's a WAV file, right, should it be uncompressed? What is it that the directions say you are supposed to do it, because a lot of times you will not even be considered. And I'm going to say this probably multiple times throughout the podcast episode today. You will not be notified. You won't be told, hey, you made a little error here in your file. That's why we didn't, that's why we didn't hire. If you just change that, we'll consider you. They're not going to do that. They don't have the time. It's not out of malice or being just mean human beings. it's just that literally they don't have the time. And I'm telling you, I don't have the time to go through all of the people that I'm doing and say, hey, we need to stop. We need you to do X, Y, Z. Right. So that's an important point to make. All right. So the next point I want to do is one that is probably, I think, the most important one. You'd think that the most important thing that you do when you audition is your performance. But I can tell you that the most important thing that you need to focus your efforts on is your sound quality. I'm telling you, you need to have great sound, professional sound, in order to get casted more. And it was interesting. The other day I saw something come out, voices.com, and they were doing this thing where they were interviewing the guy who's head of their casting, their casting section or whatever. And he was saying the number one thing people can do as well is to have better quality audio. I mean, out of everything to get more jobs, I'm telling you, I cannot say it enough. You have to have great sounding audio. So some of the things that I see that cause issues are, number one, when a person starts to talk and you can tell that their space is not acoustically treated, right? Like you can hear the reverb in the room. When I mean reverb, I mean like the bounce. It sounds like you're in a room that has nothing. There's nothing on your walls. There's no material. There's nothing to absorb any of the noise or the narration that you're doing. So that is key. First off, it is the acoustical treatment that you have. Another thing is background noise. Okay, background noise. I'm not one of those people who says you have to have -60 or you're done. Okay, no, but it needs to at least be in the upper -50s. We can handle. So I'm also an audio engineer, as you guys know, because I do a lot. This is just my life. And, I can work with, things that are in the, mid -50s and stuff. That's fine. Once they get below -50, like in the -40s and stuff like that, and then you start to hear it, you start to hear, and then you still hear humming. So, of course, we're in the middle of, we're just in the beginning of the hot season, the summer, especially depending on where you are. I think it's hot everywhere. I mean, it is, gosh, it's like 110 here where I am. So it's hot. And if you are in your space, we were talking about this the other day on the live, and it is just, it's cooking, and you're going to be having on your air conditioning, you're going to be having everything you can. It's very difficult to block that noise out unless you either turn it off and then you might be in a situation where you can't turn it off. Maybe you have an appliance that is really loud. That happened to me when I first started. And, it's very difficult, but you have to realize that all of these things will stop you from getting the voiceover job. So if you have something like that is completely out of your control, and a side note, you want to try to do some things that can help, that do not, involve you moving or something like that, right? Like, for example, your microphone, you might want a shotgun mic or a dynamic microphone that helps limit the polar pattern, right? The pickup pattern, excuse me, or the amount of background noise that's picked up, like with a dynamic microphone. Okay, that is extremely important to consider. Also, if there's a time and night, I mean, we got to do what we got to do sometimes. In the current situation you're in, yes, will it be different down the road? Sure, but right now you got to do what you got to do. So I'm telling you, background noise when it's too loud and you hear stuff, no, it's just never going to happen. It's never going to happen. Yes, you can use plugins. There's isotope, the voice denoise, the spectral frequency denoise, and then the spectral denoise. And then, yes, we were talking about NS1 today. I really don't like to use NS1. It just makes your audio sound bad. But I will admit, there are some times where you don't have a choice if it's that bad. And I'd rather it, suppress, right? It's a noise suppressor, not compressor. So there's a difference. Or a limiter. It's not a limiter, okay? Or an expander. These things are, like these terms mean something. The suppressor, it suppresses noise, which is good, but it suppresses all noise. And yes, there's very limited frequency, like targeting frequencies. It doesn't work that way. So anyways, the point I'm trying to make to you is that, that in itself is extremely important. The sound quality that you have, okay, the mouth noises that you make, like in the audio, breaths. So that's another thing. I don't want to hear a ton of breaths. You hear people all the time saying, "Oh, it's okay to leave your breath in long form narration." So yes, that is true. But what they don't say is that it needs to be very light breath, and that should only be very little bit of it. You know what I mean? It should not be like I work with a lot of people, I listen to a lot of people who talk. I mean, and it's just, I'm not going to cast them because I can't publish that, or I won't publish that. And because of that, I don't have time to go through and get rid of all those breaths. So you have to make sure that you are, also, and we'll get to that next, but that you are focusing your efforts on delivering a file that is, the quality of sound is super professional across the board. If it's not, just, you're not going to get work. Okay? As clear as that. Because there's other people who have that. And I will be honest with you, I will often cast people who might not be as good at the role as you might be, if they, or whoever's having the sound issues, right? That a person might not be, because they have great quality sound, because they do everything right. And you know what I mean? Even though their performance might be, it's good. I mean, they still have a good performance, but it might not be absolutely, like, completely 190% the voice style I'm looking for. But if everything else works, I'm going to cast them. And I think you got to consider that. Moving on to the next point, when you are recording, make sure that everything you do, the words you say, are correct. Okay, the setup of how you, so what I mean by that is, if you are putting up an audition and you're not sure of the words and you just say them and you don't look them up, you don't focus your efforts on making sure everything sounds the way it should, right? Like the words are said correctly, that's going to cause another problem, because that makes me think, oh, well, this is what I can expect them to do the whole thing. And I can't take that. Because the one thing that we don't want to do, the one thing that I don't want to do, is cast somebody, then put in all the work, and then I get to the files at the end after they've put in countless hours of work on this, and I'm like, I can't use it. There's all of these places. That's not what casting directors want to do. Do you know what I mean? We don't want to go through and edit your stuff. In a perfect world, they would. Because remember, as I'm a voice actor as well, so it would be really nice if I could just put something, send it to him, and be like, all right, well, tell me what I did wrong, and I'll fix it. So I don't have to do that. But I'm just telling you, as a casting director, I don't want to do that. I don't have the time. I just don't have the time. So make sure everything is perfect. The pacing, the pausing, make sure that you're doing everything the best that you can. Now, editing and mastering your work. This is another important piece. There's always a lot of, I guess, back and forth about, should you send something raw? Should you send it fully produced? When it comes to audiobooks, At least, for me and Academy Voices and everything I've ever done as casting director, you better send it fully ready to go. So I know that you can produce that file. Because remember, I'm not producing the end file. You are, and I'm taking that and what we do, ACX, it doesn't matter who it is. We take your files and then we distribute them. Okay, and we manage them and we sell them, right? But your job as an audiobook narrator is to make sure your files are completely done right. Now, you can hire people to do this as well, but you need to make sure that when you audition, you send a file that is completely edited and formatted. Now, in some situations for commercials and things like that, a lot of times they might say in the directions, and this goes back to following directions, hey, just send it raw, right? We want it raw. If they say that, great. That's exactly what you do. But if they don't say that, my recommendation is default to having it fully produced. And fully produced means, right, you've done your editing and your processing like you normally do. Okay, you don't send it raw, because I don't know if you send it raw. How do I know you can produce it? How do I know you can send me a finished file? I don't. So send a finished file when you do this. Okay, now let's go ahead and move on to, and it's funny because all of that stuff, will be known to the casting director in the first few seconds that you begin to speak. You might have done a 4, 5, 6 minute audition. Okay. And again, I recommend you don't do more than 2 to 4 minutes of an audition, but even if you do a couple minutes, the first second or two I will know whether or not you have quality audio, whether or not you follow the directions, right, with your file naming, all that stuff will be known, and then that will determine whether I continue to listen. Now, here's something new, something else. So a lot of times, especially today with everything being more global, you're seeing a lot more books where accents pop up, where performing, depending on whether you're doing fiction or nonfiction. And, that's an important piece to this. I'm always been an advocate of, doesn't matter whether it's an accent or not, audition for it anyways, as long as you're keeping your auditions under 10 minutes, right? So, but there's certain things, like, for example, when I'm narrating the Sherlock Holmes series, I'm really going to be looking for someone with a British accent. That's just the way it is. Okay, so that doesn't mean I'm not opposed to you auditioning for it. Your performance might be so stellar that it cuts through that accent, but that's what I'm looking for because that's what the character calls for. So I think, that an accents thing is important too. Again, I don't want you to not audition for that, but I want you to realize that, that is a shot that you're taking with understanding that the first choices are probably going to be accents in that, if it's the main character. Now, if there's other characters in there, make sure you do something with them. Work on that. Okay. Nonfiction, you're not held to that as much, right? Because it's usually you're not going to have that at all. But, fiction, there might be some stuff with accents in it. So don't be afraid to play those characters and do the very best that you can. Okay. And this is a good opportunity if you're trying to get better at that to get some schooling, some education, join an academy like VO Journey Academy where you get acting training. All right. And things like that. So anyways, so yeah. So now further on with your performance, we want to make sure that as you perform, you understand the genre you're performing for. Okay. And that you use a persona effectively, meaning that, you might be, if you are doing a biography of nonfiction that's in a first person perspective, right? Like an autobiography. And and we know that the character themselves or the person who wrote it is a tough person. You need to bring some sort of tough persona, or vice versa, right? If they are funny, or if they are witty, or they're dry, like you need to have some sort of persona. I'm not saying that you have to spend hours of research. That would be ridiculous, right? We don't have that time. But what I'm saying is acting decisions need to be made on your part. You need to make an acting decision. Hey, I'm going to use this type of persona. I'm going to use a rough voice or rough type of character. I'm not going to elongate words. I'm not going to mince words. I'm not going to make it over the top. I'm going to be tough and to the point because that's what this particular character is. Listen, as an actor, right? We have to make these acting decisions. We have to go for it. Throw it out there, let it go. But what I don't want you to do is just, narrate every single thing the same exact way every single time. That's not what we're calling for. And as you know, audiobooks, it's funny. I was listening to this podcast episode from like 2020 about audiobooks or something. And it was funny because even then they were talking about then audiobooks continues to be like out of everything is still the hottest growing. And it is today still a year over year, right? We know audiobooks continue to grow. And what does that mean? That means that we need to get better. We need, you know what I mean? We need to get better. So, it's just something to be thinking about in your mind is you come with an acting decision that you're going to try this type of character. And you might be like, well, I don't, how many different characters can I do? I don't know. Well, there you go. Part of us being voice actors is getting better at knowing what we have to offer in performance. Okay. We might have one go-to that we use for everything. That's okay. Well, that's one style. That's one persona that you have. Yes, you could define that. You could try to define that in a couple words, but we need some more. We need to add a couple more personas to you. This is part of what you are doing as an actor, as a performer, a voice actor, to grow your abilities to get more work. Okay. So as a casting director, I want, when I'm casting for, books or audiobooks, and the audiobook is calling for, like, for example, if I'm doing Tom Sawyer, I need to have someone, the narrator, who's going to be able to narrate in that style, right? That Southern, right, type of, Louisiana type of style, right? And that has that wit to it. Okay, that Tom Sawyer is famous with, that Mark Twain loved to write with. Okay, that sarcastic, wit. So I think that, it's important to know what you're going into. And let's say you're those stories were easy for me to say because they're very well-known stories. But what do you do if you're auditioning for a new audiobook, right? And I mean, one that's not a classic or something, and there's not a lot there to go on. Well, you have to read what you can because we don't have time to read the whole book. You can ask the author, right? But in the end, you're going to have to take the information that you gather from like the back cover or, the synopsis or, what the author's given you. And you have to make an acting decision. You have to decide, okay, I'm going to try it like this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to bring this character. It may be a horrific blunder, but it may be a massive success. That's acting. That's what we do. But what I don't want is for you to come in and do the same thing over and over again. And I'm like, you're not showing me anything new. Right. And I see this so much with voice actors. So many, they just keep doing the same thing over and over again. They're not getting hired and they don't know what's wrong. Okay, and I made the joke today about, Gordon Ramsay and like Kitchen Nightmares, where they go and they're like, we don't know why people aren't coming. And he's like, well, and he says, why, or no, Gordon Ramsay will say to them, hey, what do you think the problem is? And I just had your food and the food is horrible. And he says, well, our food's not horrible. No one complains about it. And he says, no one complains about it. They're just not coming. That's how they complain. They're not coming to your restaurant. That's why I'm here. Same thing, like if you keep doing stuff and you're not getting work, okay, remember, they don't have time to tell you. It's one of these things that I've spoke about today. Okay, now the last part that I haven't spoke about, which is funny because it kind of wraps it all up, but it's not contradictory, but it's just funny because in the end, you have to still do a lot of auditioning because the reality is you might have done all those things I said, made an acting decision, went all in, did a really good job, but the casting director said, oh, that was pretty good, but it's not what I'm looking for. You did nothing wrong. You did everything right, but the particular performance at that point was not what they were looking for, and they had someone else. So this is like a percentages game, right? It's like a how can you up your percentage chance to get voiceover work? Do you know what I mean? To get hired, to get casted. How can you give better odds? And this is how all of these things are put together is how you get better odds. But in the end, you still have to put out auditions. You still have to keep auditioning regularly. Okay? And that's going to be part, like the end part of all of this is to keep auditioning, but to make sure that all those other things I've mentioned are on the up and up. They are working. They're firing on all cylinders so that your auditions have the most chance to get casted. All right, you guys, I hope that this has helped you. I know I talk about VO Journey Academy, and we are starting a new semester. All these things I've talked about here, we're not only are super excited because I announced to you that we have Angela Olfest coming to be teaching audiobooks at the Academy as well, as long as I'm going to be working through acting and and teaching acting this semester. I'm very excited about that. Teaching a couple classes on acting, as well as saying Angela. We've got not just Angela, but we've got Angela and Gabby's teaching on commercial, Angela's on audiobooks. We've got Bonnie, who's going to be teaching on character acting, as well as Melissa Harlow, who's going to be teaching corporate narration. All this acting is very important for you to succeed. So we've got a new semester starting the week after July 4th. So not next week, but the week after. We'd love for you to be a part of it. And, that will, again, help you so much in your journey to getting voiceover work. Now's the time to kick this off. It's a great time to be in voiceover. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for listening. And I hope to talk to you soon. All right. Have a good one, everybody. Peace.